Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the advisory map here, we've got some areas illuminated in red. That's a winter storm warning for snow here for the northern portions there of the southeast coast. Lynn Canal right there, so this area, especially up to the north, could get anywhere from 8 to 11 inches of snow by Sunday afternoon, with the moisture streaming northward. It'll be lesser amounts and definitely a little bit more elevation here for those southern areas. Looking for just rain everywhere else. Snow advisory here for the Copper River Basin for tonight and through tomorrow, late tonight and through tomorrow. The mountainous areas, south slopes of the Alaska Range, for example, maybe the Wrangels, could see some significant snowfall there, but the heavy snow warning for the Thompson Pass area, the greater Valdez zone there, actually out through tomorrow. They could see anywhere from 18 to 32 inches of snow total by tomorrow afternoon. And then we've got some freezing rain advisories out here from the Kuskokwim Valley there, the lower valley, right on out to the delta. For later on tonight, that moisture coming around with some warmer air, so there's some trapped cold air near the surface. So where the rain falls into that, it'll actually be freezing rain. Possibility of in areas here of the yellow areas there that through tonight and into tomorrow. And then up here, these are the advisories, winter weather advisories are going through these zones, continuing to be under the influence of those advisories due to the gusty east winds, anywhere from 30 to 40 miles an hour or more in gusts, that occurring at the higher elevations, and that's where the blowing snow reduced visibility is less than a half mile at times, and these are out through most of the day on Sunday, and the winds expected to increase again here along the eastern Arctic coast toward midnight and after. So we got the blowing snow advisories going up here again. Look for those gusts to kick up to 30 to 50 miles an hour after midnight, strongest over toward Kaktovik, Barter Island, and that'll bring the visibilities down to a quarter mile or less at times, and that'll probably continue right through tomorrow once it picks back up later on tonight. And on yesterday's imagery, it wasn't a bad day here. No storminess over the southeast coast. Dry for the most part. We had a trough here moving northeastward. The bulk of the moisture back out to the northwest, bringing some areas of snow and gusty winds northward. And then watching the next big storm down to the south there already by early afternoon or mid-afternoon, spreading a lot of cirrus northward. The low center still off the map there. Moisture streaming northeastward there with a jet, and then this front out here beginning to weaken already as it came across the Aleutians. Most of the push up to the north there. There was a pretty good low center back out there toward Shimia, bringing wind gusts just about up to 70 miles an hour. All of this moved off or this way or back to the northwest and was gone today, actually late last night. And you can see today the front early on coming right across Kodiak Island has since pushed northward. Hard to pick out, but somewhere here over the southern or southwest interior during the afternoon hours. And of course, winds pretty gusty there. Had storm force level winds here, especially across the Barren Islands in toward Kamishak Bay, and to a certain distance out over the western Gulf Coast or the western Gulf of Alaska areas with full gales up to the North Gulf Coast. And that spread rain up into Prince William Sound. Places like Seward, Whittier, Portage seeing some rainfall. Definitely over at Cordova seeing rain with gusty east winds as high as 45 miles an hour there. And we've got snow currently going on there over at Yakutat and Juneau, as well as Haines and Skagway, all reporting snow this afternoon. You can see a band right through here. That's what's spreading the snow into the north, and some areas of rain on down to the south. This pushing northward there, the winds increasing along the eastern slopes of the Alaska Range there, Delta Junction, back up to seeing gusts 45 miles an hour again, but not much wind down into the Tanana Valley there, but over toward Healy and those areas seeing the gusty winds breaking out here over Norton Sound, and really a mostly clear day up there over the North Slope, Brooks Range. Some lingering clouds right in through here, but pretty nice conditions, clear skies all the way up there into the Arctic. You can see the leads that have opened up in the pack ice up there. It's clear enough to see that. Nice day here over the northwest, and then this moisture here pushing out to the west. Not much in the way of any precipitation, but northeasterlies pretty brisk here, coming back up into the delta, anywhere from 20 to 40 miles an hour in gusts from the northeast through here, and then coming around from the southeast, turning east across Bristol Bay. And of course, that's where the temperatures are the warmest. From King Salmon back down along the Alaska Peninsula with areas of rain. Most of the moisture is pushed up to the north, but still some periods of rain and showers going on. Temperatures in the lower to mid 40s down in those areas. Still raining at Kodiak Island, where they picked up a little over an inch in the last 24 hours. On the chart for tonight, that front will continue northward and drag across south central Alaska overnight tonight, and then push northward there up toward the coast across the Yukon Delta, approaching the southern part of the Norton Sound area. So look for snow and blowing snow along in advance of that front. Milder air, again, the freezing rain advisories here through the pink shaded areas out to the Yukon, or the Kuskokwim Delta. That's not out for the Yukon Delta at all, just looking at some areas of snow there, but temperatures warming up all across the area here. Staying mild, showers, Kodiak Island, less wind, but probably holding on to the IFR conditions you're seeing now, but probably not quite as low as what you're seeing now, but definitely staying pretty damp in that area with low visibilities. And heavy rain, Cordova, continued gusty winds tonight, gale force winds out in advance of this front. The tighter gradient, though, shifting a little bit over to the east there, and that's going to keep the central southeast coast in the drizzle, rain, or fog areas, and then that changing over to snow the farther north you get to the border. And of course, the higher elevations staying dry down over the southern areas from, say, Port Alexander on down across Prince of Wales Island, and then over the southern areas. Dry also up there along the Brooks Range to the Arctic coast, maybe some patchy fog in areas. Seeing some of that this afternoon around the Barrow area. And that may continue overnight tonight, but those northeast winds keeping it pretty VFR all the way down to the northwest coast across Kotzebue Sound. Dry for St. Lawrence Island, although you'll be seeing those northeast winds increase or continuing to increase, maybe a little bit more than what you're seeing this afternoon. And a lot of moisture out here over the southeast Bering Sea, streaming back down into the eastern Aleutians. Still the remnants of this front here linked up with the moisture coming back from the east there. So pretty good chance of continuing to see some rain or rain and snow mixed with definitely some fog, IFR into the Alaska Peninsula, a breakout here over the Aleutians, and this system lurking just to the south of the western Aleutian zones there. For the forecast into tomorrow, that front still looks like it's going to move it to about this position here in the south central interior. We're almost into the central interior, jumping the Alaska Range, and really hard to pick out where it exactly is when it gets inland like this, but definitely a little more defined here down into the eastern Gulf Coast, with heavy rain shifting now from Cordova and right over Yakutat, or continuing over Yakutat, and southerly winds now behind that warm front should just about change things over to rain, hopefully for the most part by this time tomorrow afternoon across Lynn Canal all the way up to Skagway, but holding off on the precipitation. Drier conditions, thinner clouds down over the southern panhandle, and we've got a couple of lows developing along this frontal boundary coming northward, and as each one of those come northward, that probably will tighten up the gradient. Best way to explain it is that with each one of these as they roll up, it just puts a squeeze on the atmosphere, tightens up the gradient, stronger winds. So look for some gales with those briefly as they as they come northward here, but not too strong. The next one pretty weak, but staying wet along the North Gulf Coast areas. Cordova, seeing more of an occasional light rain or drizzle condition, periods of fog, back down into Kodiak Island, up into the interior, except on the lee side of the mountain ranges. It'll be dry, say from Kenai on up to Palmer, of course Anchorage into the Susitna Valley. Should be pretty dry tomorrow with not much in the way of any precipitation, just a risk of a flurry or two in those areas, but the upslope areas will see pretty good snowfall again with the warning out through tomorrow for the Thompson Pass area, seeing possibly up to 30 inches of snow, and also starting out with, especially above about 400 feet over in the northern panhandle, and then a band of snow up to the north ahead of the front, and then dry conditions again with those winds again actually coming up tonight on the eastern Arctic coast, and those 50-mile-per-hour gust conditions holding through tomorrow. Windy all the way down into the Chukchi Sea and through the Bering Strait, right to St. Lawrence Island. Look for some snow and blowing snow to develop there tomorrow as that front approaches, with possible gusts up to 50 miles per hour there. Lighter winds, but still lots of low-level moisture over the Pribilofs for occasional snow or rain, fog, or combination of the three there, and some scattered rain and snow showers down across the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. And this next frontal boundary may bring some rain or snow into the central and western Aleutians, or it just could stay to the south and just bring a few clouds to that area. Then on Monday, first front way up there toward the Mackenzie River Delta, still continuing possible blizzard conditions there on the eastern Arctic coast there with blowing snow and snow. Several inches possibly falling out over the eastern Brooks Range as that thing moves northward, the heaviest there on the southern side. And same sort of situation going on back over here, snow and blowing snow across Kotzebue Sound up to maybe Kivalina. Of course, that's probably windy for Point Hope as well as Cape Lisburne. And beginning to improve now as this front gets back to the north and west of St. Lawrence Island. The winds will begin to let up significantly, as well as the snow and blowing snow. And of course, visibilities will improve dramatically there once that happens, although it may take until the late afternoon for it to do so. Next system, more wind and rain, winds gusting to 50 miles an hour. This system, that probably means gale force winds as well, coming up in toward Kodiak Island, in toward Bristol Bay, staying mild there. So that's going to be rain that falls, and then just a mix of here wrapping back around that center. And for the southeast coast, yet another low pressure area, but still a fair distance down to the south. It looks like that south-north flow is going to keep enough moisture in the air mass there to produce rain, possibly heavy at times, from roughly about Sitka up to Yakutat, over to Cordova once again, with rain about as far west as definitely Whittier, possibly Portage, but looking dry maybe for the Girdwood area. Definitely nice day for the Cook Inlet zones. Kenai on up to Anchorage, and even on the west side there, not looking too bad. Then you get up into the Susitna Valley, and you get back into the chance of rain or snow, which would be just snow once you get up into the pass areas there, and then extending back with the front, and then some partial clearing, but still a little breezy, but not too bad. East-southeast, 10 to maybe 20 miles an hour if it's over the southwest interior. Then coming back up with those higher gusts here as this next system pulls up to the north. Temperatures this afternoon, we're in the coldest here, Skagway 28 with snow to 41, both at Sitka and Klawock, or that was Heidelberg, upper 30s along the North Gulf Coast, up snow and 33 at Yakutat, 28, and now 4 miles in snow at 4 o'clock there at Valdez. Had been down to a mile or mile and a half earlier. 14 degrees and dry there in Gulkana, 3 Northway, 14 in the wind there at Delta Junction, just 5 with no wind in Fairbanks, 15 at Machumana, 20 over at McGrath. Lower 30s here, some light snow still going on at the airport. Flurries actually here for the Anchorage area, and 31 in Kenai with the winds gusted as high as 40 miles an hour earlier today. 41, rain has ended down at Homer. 27, moderate snow at Talkeetna, and farther up to the north, we had a minus 18 there at Fort Yukon, while 0 was reported for Manitowoc. And right around or near either side of 0 there along the Arctic coast, a little milder out here toward Point Hope, where it was 16 and 15 to 20 for the most part here over the northwest part of the state. Northeasterlies bringing that temperature up to 27 at Nome. Kind of windy, 27 degrees there. About the same here all along the coastline there. Down across Nunivak Island, 24 northeast winds there at Bethel, and 33 at Cape Newenham. Otherwise, it warms up over toward King Salmon with that easterly wind flow there. 40 degrees to lower 40s both at Pilot Point or Port Heiden and Sandpoint, and then back into the lower to mid 30s for the Pribilofs, mid to upper 30s for the Aleutians. Lows tonight anywhere from 15 to 25 below here over the eastern areas. Coldest in these purple shaded areas. That's where you'll see the minus 25. But some areas here, south central Alaska, staying a little above freezing, and definitely along the North Gulf Coast above freezing. Temperatures ranging from the upper 20s, St. Haines and Skagway, into the mid to upper 30s there for the remainder of the Panhandle. 35 to 40 for the lows for the Alaska Peninsula as well as the Aleutians. And tomorrow's forecast, just about everywhere that's plotted here goes above zero tomorrow, except for Kaktovik with -2, the forecast high. Near freezing here over the southwest interior there. That's that area where the freezing rain advisories are out. South of there, it'll be warm enough for rain, obviously here, upper 30s to mid 40s over the peninsula. A little cooler out over the Aleutians, but not that much, and lower 40s over the Panhandle. Flying weather, IFR up here to the north into the northern Bering Sea. Areas of here, depending on which side of the mountain ranges you're on. But definitely from Prince William Sound into the northern Panhandle. Passes Anatuvik gradually becoming marginal from south to north, staying VFR in the north side of those passes. And for the western Alaska Range, Lake Clark, Merrill, rainy. IFR in the eastern entrances, windy. Marginal VFR, probably become VFR tomorrow as one band pushes northward. Isabel, same pattern of improving conditions. Tanita IFR becoming marginal, Portage IFR, Chilkoot and White IFR. Freezing levels now warmest over the eastern, southeast part of the state, up to 6,000 feet across the Panhandle. And with that, look for some moderate rime icing below 14,000 feet over the northern Panhandle and areas of back here to the west and northwest. Strongest jet now shifting into the Panhandle tomorrow, but another southerly jet coming up into south central Alaska at about 70 knots. Pretty strong here at both 9 and 3,000 feet from south to north, 25 to 35 knots. Stronger yet over Bristol Bay, and 35 to 45 knots now rolling into the Panhandle. Turbulence-wise, possible severe along the Aleutian and western Alaska Range tomorrow. Also from the Bering Strait across St. Lawrence Island. That'll mostly be below the 5,000 to 6,000 foot level. Possible severe as another low rolls up the southeast coastline there. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
The beach on the southeast side of Montague Island stretches for nearly 80 miles of pristine wilderness. At least it looks pristine from a few thousand feet up. As our helicopter descends towards the shore, big chunks of white styrofoam come into view.
You see all the big globs of styrofoam? That's all tsunami debris. Yeah, there's more styrofoam out here. There's no question.
Chris Pallister would know. He's president of the nonprofit Gulf of Alaska Keeper. The group has been cleaning up marine debris that washes onto Alaska's shores for 11 years. And when the tsunami debris began arriving last spring, their job got a whole lot harder. Pallister has visited Montague Island nearly a dozen times since then. And by the time we land and step onto the pebble beach, he's shaking his head in disgust.
I mean, you're basically standing in a landfill out here.
Pallister points to an area scattered with styrofoam bits smaller than packing peanuts.
So you see what's happening here with all the crushed up styrofoam now? This is what we're worried about. This styrofoam's just going to get all ground up. And you can see there's just the billions, trillions of little bits of styrofoam scattered all over everything.
The smaller it gets, the more concerning it is.
The smaller it gets, little pieces like this, is virtually impossible to clean it up. I mean, to clean this up right here, you have to take out all this organic matter with it, and extrapolate that all up and down this coastline. It's kind of an impossible job.
The trash is not just an eyesore. Pallister says voles, birds, and even bears are eating the styrofoam and plastic. He's also worried about chemicals. Among the debris, he finds containers that held kerosene, gas, and other petroleum products. Even the little containers worry him. Sifting through the trash, he picks up a small blue bottle and unscrews the cap to inspect its contents.
I have no idea what this was. It looks like just dish soap, maybe, laundry detergent, but it's empty, which is maybe not a good sign. But there's thousands of bottles like this all up and down the coast, from small household chemical items to drums full of chemicals, big industrial-sized drums.
Marine debris is not a new issue in Alaska, but the Japanese tsunami has magnified the problem many times over. Pallister says the tsunami debris doesn't have the visceral impact of the Exxon Valdez spill, with oiled animals and blackened coastlines, but he thinks in the long run it could be a bigger environmental disaster.
In a lot of ways, it's a lot worse than the oil spill, both in the geographic scope of it and the chemicals that are coming with it. And who knows what the impacts are going to be. And they're going to be really difficult to measure because they're spread out spatially. And, you know, it's going to be a very difficult scientific issue to sort that all out, I think.
Officially, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has only recorded 20 tsunami debris items that have landed in Alaska, but the agency will only confirm an object if it has a unique identifier that can be traced back to Japan. The state of Alaska does not use the same strict standard. Last summer, the state paid for an aerial survey to inspect 2,500 miles of Alaska's coastline. Elaine Bussey Floyd is acting director of the Division of Environmental Health. She says the survey identified tsunami debris all along the flight path from southern southeast up to Prince William Sound and out the Alaska Peninsula.
There was tsunami debris literally on every beach that was photographed. They took over 8,000 pictures, and it was more widespread and greater quantities than we even expected.
But so far, there has been minimal funding for cleaning up the debris. Governor Sean Parnell didn't include any tsunami debris funding in his budget. NOAA is figuring out how to distribute a $5 million gift from Japan, and Alaska's congressional delegation is working to get federal funds. But tsunami debris cleanup money was stripped from a bill for Hurricane Sandy relief that passed this week.
Look at this mess here.
Back on the beach, as the waves crash in, Chris Pallister says the debris could have serious impacts on fisheries and subsistence resources.
I don't know if it's being taken seriously enough. I don't think a lot of people that are going to be impacted by it know how bad it is right now. And until that gets out, maybe not much is going to happen. But I think we're kind of getting to the tipping point now where a lot of people in the state and federal agencies realize the gravity of this situation, and they're all working pretty hard now to get a handle on the scope of the problem and trying to develop funding sources. But as of yet, that hasn't happened. But it's a huge problem. It's going to take years to clean this mess up.
Pallister guesses it will take tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars to remove the debris. On this day, though, he has to leave it all on the island.
All right, we better go back.
Okay. We take off in the helicopter and head north along the beach. Pallister looks out the window at all the debris below and says it just goes on and on and on. On Montague Island, I'm Annie Fight.
Welcome back. We'll look for, again, up to gale force winds here on the south coast, coming northward, but lighter winds up to the north, again, depending on the timing of that system as it comes up to the north. Otherwise possible 25-knot winds over the southern inside waters, and then swinging around to south and probably bringing warmer air and changing snow over to rain all the way up to Skagway tomorrow. Otherwise, for Monday, southeasterlies 20 to 25 knots out along the coast and just 10 to 15 knots here over the inside waters. For the Barren Islands here, southeast 40 knots again, so holding on to the gales but dropping back under gales here in toward Kamishak Bay. Small craft advisories south of the Forelands in Cook Inlet, and easterlies at about 25 tomorrow for Kodiak Island. And then lighter winds yet, these southeast 25 winds will be strongest down towards Sitkinak. That's where the small craft advisories will be, and then dropping back to about 20 knots up the coastline. Lighter winds yet over Shelikof Strait, and 10 to 15 knot northeasterlies for Cook Inlet, east 15 for Prince William Sound. For Bristol Bay, south 25 knots tomorrow, and southwest here 25 to 30 across the peninsula, and also southwest winds right up toward Kodiak Island. 30 to 35 knots, could be some gales, especially early on the day tomorrow. And then definitely on Monday, looking at a return to gale force winds, 40 knots from the southeast there from Sitkinak over to roughly Chignik, maybe Sand Point. And then behind that next front, coming down quite a bit, 15 to 20 knots. And out in the Aleutians, southwest 20 knots here across the eastern areas, and easterlies up to 25 in the central Aleutians, gale force easterlies out toward Shimei and Attu. And then for Monday, northwest 20, west 15, pretty light through this area, and then northwesterlies 20 to 25 knots from Oatka over toward Nikolsky, and then out of the south 25 or 20 to 25 knots for the Fox Islands. And for the Bering Sea, northeast gales tomorrow, St. Lawrence Island, dropping off as you head down the coastline here to just east at 15 or 10 to 15 from Kuskokwim Bay, and northwest 20 for the Pribilofs. Monday's forecast, still looking at gale force winds there for St. Lawrence Island, but more easterly winds in that 25 to 30 knot range here across the northern Bering Sea, but staying light down south of Nunivak Island, and for the Pribilofs, northeast at 20. The Arctic coast, strongest winds again coming back up later tonight, and go 30 to 40 knots there with the gales on the east side. Lighter northeast winds continuing, and those polar easterlies continue through Monday, but maybe coming down to 30 knots, trying to bring it down most areas here. 15 for the central coast, still 20, maybe 30 knots right through here throughout the day on Monday, and 20 to 25 for the Chukchi Sea. And for tonight, still some gusty winds and rain. Mild conditions, though, with lows having trouble dropping below 40 degrees here in the rain-shaded area, but the freezing rain advisories across the lower Kuskokwim and Yukon Delta.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.